Thank you. I would like to call the October 9th, 2018 Nashua Board of Education meeting to order. It is now 7:11, and we are at the Nashua High School North Lecture Hall. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Mosher?
Yes, I'm here.
Mrs. Oden?
Here.
Mr. Kaufman? Mr. Kaufman is absent. Ms. Raymond?
Here.
Ms. Timmons?
Here.
Ms. Hohensie is also absent. Ms. Van Twyver?
Present.
Mr. Garino is here. Ms. Porter?
Here.
Mr. Sweeney?
Here.
Ms. Sweeney, I'm sorry. Mr. Gillis?
Here.
Other attendees, we have Dr. Moseley. We have Dr. McKinney, Ms. Fitzpatrick, Mr. Donovan, Ms. O'Gara. Did I miss anyone? I think that's it.
Okay.
We have a quorum, Madam President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garino. Mr. Garino will read the prayer, and could Mr. Gillis lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Can we please stand? Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty of managing the educational institutions of our beloved city. In our common endeavors, may we find a spirit of unity and understanding which will enable us to face our multiple problems with an objective mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will be for the betterment and greater happiness of all of our fellow citizens. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda? Okay. If not, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Oh.
Would you like me to take the roll, Madam President?
Please.
Okay. On the motion to accept the consent agenda, Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Garino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, is there any communication outside the consent agenda? I see none. Okay. We are now at our public question and comment period, which is limited to items on this agenda.
Adam Marcoux, 4 Jalori Lane. I'm president of the Nashua Teachers Union. I'm here speaking tonight on behalf of the 7 unions that represent the Nashua School District. I have a prepared statement that's been signed by all 4 leadership teams. I prefer to go off cuff, but I do have a statement that we'll read tonight. On behalf of their members, the chapter chair of the Nashua School Custodians Union, Local 365, Council 93, AFSCME, AFL-CIO, Donna Grady, the president of the Nashua Association of School Administrators and Directors, David Rossio, the president of the Nashua Association of School Principals, Mark Lucas, and the president of the Nashua Teachers Union, AFT Local 1044, AFL-CIO, Adam Marcoux, call on Board of Education member Howard Kaufman to resign his seat on the Board of Education immediately. Over the last several months, Mr. Kaufman has repeatedly demonstrated behavior that is unbecoming of an elected official. Mr. Kaufman's behaviors include behaving in such an unprofessional and inappropriate manner that others present felt their safety was in jeopardy, making repeated and numerous requests for information with no regard to the necessity for the information to conduct board business, the amount of staff time it will take to gather that information, nor the impact it has on taking focus away from educating our students. Making lengthy speeches at Board of Education meetings that otherwise showcase his political philosophy, but take time away from focusing on the needs of our students. Repeatedly interrupting the board president and other Board of Education members while they are speaking. Using disrespectful language towards other members, in particular denigrating them in the text of his prepared speeches. Using excessively picky and sometimes unique interpretations of parliamentary procedure to impede the work of the Board of Education, rather than as an aid in getting things done for the good of the students of the Nashua School District. The students and the employees of the Nashua School District and the residents of the city of Nashua deserve a school board that works together, moving our district forward. For this reason and those listed above, we request Mr. Kaufman's resignation from the Nashua Board of Education. This will be released to the public at 7:15 to all of your BOE email accounts, and the contact for this release is me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay. Superintendent's comments.
I have been thinking about what to say at the last board meeting for quite some time. I have been, over the last 3 weeks, contemplating how to continue on with the things that I have witnessed at this meeting, at the board level. I don't know about individual board members. What I do know is that Ms. Oden has shown great leadership, and the majority of this board cares about the kids. I see the principals out in the audience. I see all units, bargaining units, united for our kids. We have started some great work with the contracts, and we still have some contracts left to sign over. But I also think that, But I also think that this district is at a point where we want to move forward, and we're eager for that. And to see these bargaining units united in a way that's for kids and for us is something that cannot be ignored. What I read in that police report and what I witnessed was not okay. And it's not indicative of us. And I believe that we are much better than what has been portrayed and demonstrated at this board level. And so I sit here and I'm lost for words as to what and how to describe what happened on that day. The only thing that I can say is that we are united in making sure that this district moves forward, and you have my word on that. And I say that to the public, I say that to the kids, and I say that to the units that are sitting right there. And I am so sorry that Patrick and Haley have to watch and go through this every single night when they're here. I'm so sorry that we don't end these meetings in a timely manner. The two of you and our students are so regulated that I just want to say thank you. But understand that the people you see out there, they care about you and they want you to do and be successful. And that when things don't go well here at this board level, they're out there with you and making sure that we do well here. My comments to the public are such that I believe that Nashua is starting to turn a corner in the sense that we're united for the kids. And each time I go out to the strategic planning and we do these focus groups, the message is the same. Our parents, our kids, they want stability, they want governance, they want us to think about our future in them. and I will continue to do that with the support of the units. And I thank the units for all the work they do every day. Moving to my comments is such that Sue, Porter, and myself, and we've been facilitating strategic planning, and that has dominated our time. It has been great to talk to parents, it's been great to talk to teachers, and we have a lot more work to do. I would like to say that we have, again, recently been recipients of a grant. I'm sorry, if I could just jump back. If you're looking for information on the strategic planning, I emailed the board links to the website. My hope is that we, the collective we, Tara, Gabby, can really start to focus on getting that website much more updated. I think we can do better with the support of what we're getting right now. But look to that website as we start to get more feedback from the public. When we start to get more feedback from the focus groups, you'll find that information there. I'd like to say that we're in the thick of the strategic planning and gathering data, meaning that we're having focus groups. I'm also in the process of developing a survey for our general community to respond back to our strategic planning. I also wanted to say again, I also sent you a video link from our CTE program. Again, Mr. McQuilkin and Amanda Bastoni, who have continued to push the CTE program further than it has been in quite a long time. And I don't know, have you had a chance to see the video? Again, if you watch the video, we are a recipient of a $50,000 grant to study the potential for adding mathematic programs and credits to our CTE students so that they can take algebra. The final details haven't been quite worked out, but again, they're in collaboration with the State Department and making sure that all of our kids can have access to our CTE programs. I will leave myself just by saying with the superintendent's comments that change is coming to this district. It's coming in a positive way. And I can't wait to get on that wave and continue the change. Thank you so much.
Board's response to the superintendent's comments.
No comment.
Ms. Porter.
I want to say thank you. Thank you for all of you being here tonight. It's just quite a vision to see you all in red supporting public education. That's why we're here, and that's why I'm here. And I really appreciate everybody coming together. And as Dr. Moseley said, we're working on our strategic plan, which should be the focus. We need to have a direction for our city, for our students. That's the important work of our district, focusing on moving ahead, moving forward, and it takes a village. We have to do this all together, and this is just great. So thank you very much for being here.
Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. I did watch the video that Dr. Moseley was referencing, and I just wanted to give a shout out, a kudos to Ms. Bastoni. This is the second large grant that she has brought to the CTE program in the last 8 months, maybe even a little bit less. And I just think that that's fabulous, and I absolutely adore her commitment and her resourcefulness in securing these things for our kids. So,
Thank you. Ms. Sandfiver, do you have anything? Mr. Garino?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say to the audience, thank you for coming today, and I just want to say that this board is not dysfunctional. I know it doesn't look that way at many times, but we have 7 people on this board, 7 people who know how to put their differences aside and put the district first. And I think that's what we have on this board, a majority that puts the district first. And we have been doing that despite what people have seen and some things that have happened. So I am here to be accountable to the people, and I think every board member should be here and be accountable. And I will apologize, and I have apologized when things got out of hand. But we definitely, as Dr. Moseley said, we need to set a better example for our students. And my promise to the board is that it is functional and it's going to remain functional. And I also want to congratulate Amanda Bastoni on a job well done. I've gone to the open house, I've seen the CTE banners, and they do a great job at recruiting. And so we're really proud to have them in our school. So job well done to the CTE director. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to thank all of you for being here. Some nights it's a lot tougher than other nights. I came out of the teaching ranks, and certainly people might have their differences, but I have never dealt with the behavior I've had to deal with on the board. Thank you for all the members that have spoken. I think you speak for most of us. I would like to thank all of the people out there that have participated in the focus groups for the strategic plan. And I want all of you to know that we did listen. We got some feedback that teachers felt that they would like to be represented on the strategic planning committee. I think originally the feel was we would go out to each school and have input from teachers that way, but we did listen to what we were hearing, and we did add a teacher from each level to the strategic planning committee. You are the heart and soul of the district. You are there every day with those kids. And this strategic plan, I can tell you, when Dr. Moseley came, the first thing he said to us, he said, "You don't have a strategic plan." He said, "The strategic plan is supported by the budget. You have to have a strategic plan to make sure your budget is taking care of your education and your priorities." And it is a very large project. I give Ms. Porter a lot of credit, and Dr. Moseley, I look at the number of meetings they have. It's unbelievable. But thank you to all of you. I see the custodians up there. I see some of our central office people. Thank you all for being here, and I know you are here for the kids just as we are. So thank you so much. And Mr. Gillis.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you again, like Ms. Raymond said, to Mrs. Bastoni. I think it's good to see that students who don't necessarily want or to go down the traditional core course like math, English, social studies path, that they have those opportunities in CTE courses, and so I think that's important. And thank you to Mrs. Bastoni.
Ms. Sweeney.
So often I am asked how I sit through the board meetings, because at times they can be a little rowdy. And normally I laugh it off. I say, oh, I enjoy it, it's fun. But normally the real reason is because of the teachers. As I look here in the audience, I see former teachers from middle school. I see current and former administrators that I had. And it's truly the skills they gave me that kind of lets me see the world like this and sit through the meetings and enjoy what I do. So I think I can speak on behalf of the students itself and in the district, and we say thank you.
Okay, moving on. Committee on the Budget, we have nothing there. Committee on Finance and Operations from a meeting held earlier this evening. Mr. Guarino.
Thank you, Madam President. Do I have to make a motion to suspend the rules to allow us? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to allow us to take on the item from the Committee on Finance and Operations today.
Second.
Okay. On the motion to suspend the rules, Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 7-0. So earlier, we the committee had approved a resolution R18077, which is from the aldermen. They are approving our capital improvements program. I believe it's $380,000. Mr. Donovan had explained it to us, what it was involved. So I'm not going to go into more detail. What I'd like to do is move to approve Resolution R18-077 from the Board of Aldermen.
Second.
Okay. Okay. Are you ready for the vote,
Yes.
Madam President?
Yes.
On the motion to approve Resolution R18077 from the Board of Aldermen, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Okay. And you have a meeting tomorrow night?
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Our next meeting on Finance and Operations would be tomorrow, right here at 6:30 PM.
Okay, thank you. Committee on Policy?
Thank you. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, the 16th, at 6 o'clock here in this room. We have a really ambitious agenda for next month. We'll be talking about policies on state assessments. We'll be updating some out-of-date policies, and we'll be revisiting our weapons policy.
Thank you. Ms. Van Twyver?
Thank you, Madam President. We have not met the curriculum meeting since our last meeting. Our next one is October 15th, and I believe the topic is going to be on approving the pathways. Is that the right title? Footsteps. I knew it was one of the two, which needs to be done now so that it can be printed and prepared for next year.
Thank you. Committee on Human Resources?
Yes, Madam President, I move to suspend the rules as the Human Resources Committee met today at 5:35. And I would like to move to accept recommendations for Christina Rashad, Assistant Principal, Birch Hill Elementary School for the 2018-19 school year at an annual salary of $77,250.
Second.
Roll call.
On the motion, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Just for clarity, we're voting both to suspend the rules and to approve the new vice principal, yes?
yes.
Okay, then yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Secondly, I'd like to move to accept Jeffrey Abigas, Assistant Principal, Fairgrounds Middle School for the 2018-19 school year at an annual salary of $84,250. Can I have a roll call, please? Or second,
Second.
please?
Second,
Second.
Roll call.
ready for the vote, Madam President? Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter,
Yes.
motion carries 7-0.
Last but not least, I'd like to move to accept the approval of Laura Weideman, Interim Assistant Principal, Pennachuck Middle School for the 2018-19 school year at an annual salary of $86,750.
Second.
Roll call.
Ready for the roll call? Okay. Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
And the last item on our agenda for that day was personnel recommendation dated October 9th, 2018. I'd like to have a motion to approve that.
Second. I guess, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Roll call.
On the motion, Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
The next meeting for the HR committee will be on October 24th, 2018, at 5:30 here at Nashua North.
Thank you. I got confused at the beginning of the meeting, but I do want to ask the board if you will suspend the rules to limit members speaking to a motion or an issue on the agenda twice, the first time for 2 minutes and the second time for 1 minute. Do I have a second or a motion for that?
Madam President, I'd like to amend that to include until December 31st, 2018. So the motion would be the 2 minutes response time and the 1 minute follow-up question or agenda topic until December 31st, 2018. I'm adding a date on that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Just to clarify, you want it to go all the way up to December 18th?
December 31st, 2018. A reason why we are changing.
Oh, because of the, I see.
Right. Okay. There's a second.
Mr. Mosher seconded it. Are you ready? Is there discussion? You ready for the roll call?
Point of information, is this a friendly amendment to the original motion? So just one motion?
I'm assuming so. I wouldn't have to make it at,
A friendly amendment?
no, I think she made
I made
an amendment
to
to
your
the motion, and Mr. Mosher seconded it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm still confused, I'm sorry. Are we voting once for the amendment and once for the original motion? Okay, thank you, I apologize.
Okay. On the amendment, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. And now if we're ready to vote on the main motion. Okay, and
Could
that,
you read it with the amendment, please?
okay, that is to change the rules so that each member speaks twice, 2 minutes the first time, 1 minute the second time on each motion, till December 31st, 2018. On the motion, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mrs. Oden,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, liaison reports.
No.
Anybody? Okay.
Madam President?
Yes.
This, okay, never mind. I thought that this is October, the one meeting that we usually have in October. Ooh, I can't remember, but that's all right. Forget it.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem. Unfinished business, results of the student home computer access for the 2018-19 school year.
Did you want to speak to that, Dr. McKinney, or? Okay. We got some preliminary numbers, and again, this is, at the last couple of meetings, there was some discussion around how many kids had computer access. We do send out some information to parents around what they're looking for in terms of, how much access they have at home. So these are, when I say preliminary numbers, can we just allow for the October 1st count to come through, and then I could actually do some updates. So this is just an update of the numbers of what we have for students that have access to computers. They have to typically check off the box whether they have access to the computers or not at home. So this was a request made by a board member just for this information, and so I thought it would just be helpful as more informational now than anything else.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Gillis?
In the high schools, is this going to students or parents, the survey?
This was,
Go right.
okay. This is just given to the kids. So at the high school, I think I would say it's, sorry? What'd you say? If you have to.
I apologize. I said hence the blanks because a significant number of kids didn't answer.
Correct. And the kids don't answer it, but don't take that as they don't have access. I think at the high school level, it's the level of access. So for instance, when we're talking about elementary school, typically elementary kids do not have a computer per se, so they can have access to it. But at the high school level, it's a little different because they have cell phones, and some cell phones are just as capable and comparable as some computers. So, it's kind of I'm going to just ask, do you have a cell phone? Can you have access to the internet?
Yeah, I can.
So you have access to the internet. Do you have a cell phone, Haley? Can you have access to the internet? So, the wave of this is like old timers like me like to use a computer, but you young whippersnappers are now using your cell phones as computers, but you're not necessarily indicating you are. So that's why you see those blanks.
Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. So the way I'm reading this is we have over 9,000 of our 11,000 students who did not respond to computer access and almost 7,000 who did not respond to internet access. So the information we got back isn't particularly useful at this time. So I'm not sure what the next steps ought to be when we have so many parents who missed the box or students who failed to give their parents the form or whatever, what the next step is. Does anyone recall what the purpose of the information was for?
I'll just take, this was, go ahead.
No, I believe it was when we were talking about textbooks, getting them online rather than the hard copies. I believe that was the impetus, and I think other reasons, but I think that came up at that point.
I mean, really, I think it's a very valid point. The way that we're gathering this data needs to be examined because it's not really capturing what is access. So do they have a laptop or do they have access to the internet? So I think that's a level of confusion that continues to surface. This was implemented before, this type of data gathering was implemented before I arrived. Is something that, certainly we can take a look at it. Part of what we started, and then Rick isn't here, but we started the technology committee to start looking at those types of data, in addition to other things. But I certainly can see the flaw in having someone check off a box and then return it compared to someone who has internet access where you go online and then you click yes or no. So maybe it's a question of developing a little bit more of a broader survey that allows parents to quickly respond back online. I don't have a survey mechanism right now for the board to review, but certainly it's worth re-examining or revisiting.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Madam President, I thought one time we had talked about putting something on that sheet that they give students every year for a spot for where they could check out off whether they had internet access. That might be a good place to do it.
Dr. McKinney?
It is on the registration sheet. So a majority of this information comes at new student registration and annual update of student information from parents. So as a parent of 3 children, those first 2 weeks when all the homework comes home to parents, it's likely that those boxes aren't always checked or reported back to the school for students that do have computer or internet access. Also, for your information, I think the concern came from a board member around if we continue to provide more and more online resources, would all students have access to them? And I think it's likely that most teachers make that accommodation for students. If they don't, they're provided with print or alternative accommodations so they can still complete their work. So I do concur with the assessment that it's hard to get an accurate picture of all of that when you're updating all those forms for a number of kids. It's likely that that box or two is not checked when you have a pile of them and you have a number of kids. It's not the most exciting time as a parent to get those back to school.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Are you, okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is, my agenda go? Unofficial enrollment update.
Sure. So again, so just for the public, every year we monitor enrollment, and the most important number when it comes to enrollment is October 1st date. And so please understand that's the cutoff date, but we're still tallying, we're still verifying numbers, so that's the process we're in right now. So if you just look at this, this is still a draft. We will have harder numbers or pretty accurate numbers by the end of the month, but you can tell it's about 11,216 students. So compared to last year, I'm just going off my memory, it's just about the same as we had last year, plus or minus a student here or there. So compared to last year, our enrollment is fairly stable. But at the same time, I will have better and more accurate numbers by the end of the month. But just to give you a sense of where our enrollment is, district-wide, it's about 11,216. There was a request made by a board member just to get some information around rooms availability, and so that is also included in your packet at the elementary school level. We're still working out the numbers at the high school. It's a little bit more complicated at the high school, only because for instance, you may have like our drone program, right? Is that class available? Absolutely, the class is open, but the maximum amount of kids that you could have in that is about 15 kids because of the equipment, the level of engagement, and the space. So when you're looking at numbers at the high school, you just have to keep in mind it's all about program, it's all about teacher, the programs, the materials, the space. So that all kind of factors into class size and also the number of kids. So sometimes, please don't compare the drone program class size, room space, to someone like an English teacher that might have 25 kids in there. So we'll get those numbers to you, but we just thought it would be helpful to start with the elementary school and to give you that information.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Moseley. The next item under unfinished business, the grant information, general assurances. Mr. Donovan, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. There was a request made, I believe, last meeting. We were talking about grants, and I think as they related to the general assurance certification that was required. During the budget process, we typically deal with the operating budget, and then towards the end of the operating budget, we'll have one session on grants and revenues. Well, this year, due to the way that the budget was the process was truncated, and then suddenly the budget was moved as is over to the city, we didn't go through the grant and revenue part of the budget. So these documents that were included in the package were not included in your budget book. So all I did was I took what I have in my budget book, which is this, gave it to Tara, she copied it and gave it to you. But basically it's the The first part of it is the single audit. That actually has been shared. It was shared in the April Finance and Operations Committee, which just should give the board and others some comfort that we don't really have any issues with our grants, since once a year, due to the fact that we receive so much money, we're audited every year by an outside firm, and we've passed the audit multiple years in a row now. So there are no specific issues. So that's the first part of it. The rest of it, there are 4 of the grants that we chose. We chose Title I and IDEA, which are the 2 largest of our grants. Title III and the Perkins. The Perkins is the one where the money's spent on the CTE program. And basically, each has a cover sheet, which gives you a list of the different activities that are in the grant. And then if you went through and read each, the next is the grant submittal form. So basically, we get a grant amount from the state. The grant director then works with Glennis in the accounting department at central office. They put together this grant application. It's then approved by myself or Dr. Moseley, sent up. The state then approves it, and they will make changes on a fairly frequent basis. So it's sort of a back and forth a couple times, and then we agree on it, we move forward. During the year, there can be changes. A grant manager can step forward and say, well, it looks like we're not going to spend the money on, let's say, an equipment line item. I'd like to spend it on something else. Assuming the state approves that, then the changes will be made in the grant. So that's kind of what the process is. And keep in mind, we're given a grant amount. We don't always spend every penny of that, okay? We will spend, there's a thing called a carryover. So let's say you're given a $3 million grant. If you only spend $2.9 million, you can typically apply to carry over that $100,000 into the next year. So occasionally people try to tie numbers. It's very difficult for a grant because grants don't run in a fiscal year. A lot of the grants will run, let's say, September through August. Our fiscal year runs July through June. So if you're trying to tick and tie numbers, it can get a little bit tricky with that. But I think if you look at the audit, the single audit, and you'll see a list of what all the grants are, and approximately, that's the amount we actually spent in the fiscal year that's in the audit. That's not going to necessarily tie to the amount that we were awarded for the grant because of different time periods and because of the carryovers. So that's a quick summary of the grants. Questions?
Ms. Van Twyver.
I have 2 questions, Mr. Donovan. There's no Title II in here. And is there a Title 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 that are grants? I know there's a Title 9 that's a grant.
Yeah, there's no, there is a Title II grant that's not in this package. I could get one. I don't know if I could get one dated at the same time, but there is a Title II grant. There are not grants for most of those other numbers.
But isn't there a Title 9?
No.
Title IX
Title IX is not.
It's an athletic thing.
That's an athletic thing, like rights for, like you have to have, I'm sorry, can I speak?
Go right ahead.
Female and male athletes.
Sexual harassment.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. My second question is about the only audit grants of $750,000? It's only required on grants of $750,000 or some figure?
When they come and do the audit, they can actually audit any they want. They're required to audit grants that are more than $750,000 in any year. Okay. But when they come, they can audit other ones.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Guarino.
Thank you, Madam President. Since we're talking about general assurances, and I know in the past we've had discussions about this in our past meetings, but I did see an email and I was looking for it. I just wanted to assure the public about our federal grants that we are good to go. That is the email that I saw from the Department of Education, who we did our certification and we got all our information in. So our federal grants are good to go, and there's no, there was a hiccup, but there's no, we're right on track to receive our grants. I just wanted to make that comment, and if you have anything to add, Mr. Donovan, if I didn't get it straight, you know, let me know if I'm not.
No, that's correct. The state has received all the information they need for our certification, and they are now paying the grants.
Right.
It never prevented us from spending the money. It's just they held up for a few days the payment.
Right. And the other thing I wanted to say, I wanted to thank Mr. Donovan and also the people that, I'm sorry for neglecting their name, but who keep track of these grants. I noticed that performance measures, we're always talking about data and performance measures. There's a lot of different performance measures in here, so it helps us understand how we're measuring, you know, the progress in our schools. And I noticed that iReady is in here, so it's a good thing we didn't get rid of iReady. At least we have performance measures that we can use for these grants. I just wanted to make that comment also. So we have to be careful not to do, this board has to be careful, do no harm when we make motions and try to do things that, you know, this is good though. This is good information, and it helps me learn more about the grants and everything. So thank you.
I have one question. 3 or 4 years ago, and I understand carryover, we had a carryover of close to $1 million. And we bought, I believe, all Chromebooks with that $1 million. We did. How do we gather $1 million in carryover? It seems like something wasn't done that had been done in the past to have a carryover of that amount.
I believe the carryover amount is a maximum of 10% over a 3-year period. And then if you don't use that accumulation of the 10%, you'll lose it. So I believe what you're speaking about was it wasn't all carryover, but a lot of it. But at the end of every 3 years, you can't carry over that money any longer. So the money needed to be spent that year. And that's when we bought it was technology that we purchased. I'm not sure if it was all Chromebooks or not, but a lot of technology.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. New business, approval of the superintendent's nomination to the Riviera University Board of Trustees.
So briefly, I was approached by the Riviera Board of Trustees to be a part of their board, and that was last year. And so to be very honest with you, I was new. There was a lot of things going on, and so I just didn't feel that I was in a good position to do so. And so the dialogue continued. I'd say that I would reconsider it for this year, provided that I, was aware of the responsibility. So number one, I want to be very clear. I'm not being paid any extra money or anything like that. It's completely volunteer. Number two, I think it's a great opportunity for better partnership and collaboration with our local colleges and our local stakeholders. And the time commitment is very, very nominal. It's not that much. And so certainly, I believe it's a good opportunity for the school to partner with our neighbor, and also really continue to forge and cultivate the partnerships we already have. I think we can get better at, having student teachers come out to our schools. We do have some of the nurses coming into our schools to do some internships and fulfill their program requirements and their time on things. And so I think it was first of all, I'm very honored that they considered me. I actually said, do you know who I am? I mean, do you really want me part of your board? And so Mr. LaPlante was very, very gracious, very nice, and very complimentary. And so I wanted to alert the board before anything publicly went out to the board, just to give them an FYI that this was coming down coming out very, very soon.
Okay. Mr. Green? Ms. Raymond?
Well, congratulations. That's wonderful, and I continue to be impressed with your outreach to community partners and other people in our city. I think it's fabulous. Do you need a motion from us, or is this more of an FYI?
I never really thought of it as a motion, but if you'd like to take a motion so we don't have to have another special meeting, I'd be happy to have a motion. That'd be fine.
Ms. Van Twyver's like shaking her head at me. No?
No.
The gentleman can do anything he likes after hours.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So I'm fine. I just wanted to give you information, that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Greeno?
I just wanted to congratulate Dr. Moseley for being appointed to the Board of Trustees. I think he's making important connections to our community, so I think it's
Thank you.
Yeah. So I was going to make a motion, but if you don't...
I don't need it.
Don't need it. Okay, so, but congratulations again.
Thank you.
And I just want to congratulate you, and I'm sure when you were approached last year, you were honored, but the district came first. You were new to Nashua, and I know you're still learning, but congratulations. I think it's a nice honor for you.
Thank you.
The next issue, the
Can
person...
I say
Oh,
something?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mosher, I am so sorry.
It's okay. As far as the approval of the superintendent's nomination to the Riviera University Board of Trustees, it brought to mind, years ago when they used to have milk delivered to the door, that we always had a very, very good supply of the milk. But I found out that I could relate that to the nomination to the Riviera University Board of Trustees. Like that milk, the cream would separate, but you always remember that the cream always rose to the top. And I think that is appropriate for the nomination to Riviera University Board. So, congratulations, the cream has risen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. I'm lactose intolerant, but I will take that as a compliment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mosher. Okay, the next new business item is there was a member that's not here this evening that wanted a board work session on the NEASC report, Nashua High School South, and the Endicott survey that was done at part of the NEASC. Does anybody have, Dr. Moseley?
We just received a report of the NEASC back late last week, and that came to myself, and it's probably going to come to the board chair. So typically when we do the NEASC, the principal reviews it. Then in this case, it would be Mr. Richard. He'll share that with the faculty. But in the next board packet, you will get a copy of that NEASC report. So what that report shares is the content of the survey, and certainly Mr. Richard and his leadership team will come to the board and do a presentation on the findings and recommendations, as well as the accommodations of the South NEASC report. So we do have that. It will be in your next board packet. It's typically appropriate for the principal to review it and then share the results in the report with the faculty, and then it comes to the board.
Okay. Mr. Greeno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Was there another Nashua South survey, Endicott, an older one that we received?
If it was through the NEASC, then it was probably 10 years ago.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I can, if there is any other, I'll have to check with Mr. Richards on that. Any survey or Endicott survey that we would have, certainly that's all fair game, and we can share the results with you.
Okay.
The 10 years ago, the NEASC report was on North High School.
He's right.
Good memory, Mr. Mosher.
I
Ms.
was
Raymond?
there.
Okay. Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. So I do think the most appropriate thing would be to have Mr. Richards come and present this to us, as opposed to anybody else. Is that something that can be scheduled as part of a regular board meeting, or will it take significant time where we would need a special meeting for that?
Can I just check with Mr. Richards to see his level of preparedness, and then I can get back to the board?
Okay. So is there any interest in a work session for the NEASC reports and the Endicott survey? That's what the person wanted, a work session for that. So is there any interest on the board for that? No one?
No, I don't have any interest.
Well, I'll talk again.
Go right ahead.
I think that we ought to wait to hear back from Mr. Richards what he feels he needs as far as time to present the information to us.
Okay.
That seems fair.
I see the NEASC report is something that the faculty at each school needs to work on. The Endicott survey was part of their evaluation, and I think it's important for them, and if we could get either written or an oral report of what they gleaned from the report, their strengths and things they need to work on, I think that would do me. I don't need to have a full work session unless what they have found will require that. Okay?
If I
Dr.
could just
Moseley.
add what Madam Chair, the NEAS report works such that there are some recommendations that the NEAS has proposed for the South. And so those you may see some of those recommendations during the budget requests. Maybe it's, whether it's faculty, whether it's resources, whether it's, technology. So if there's a point of, in addition to having the presentation with Mr. Richards, he may have some recommendations and some real strong points around the budget process, and we may see those things play out as we start to create and construct the budget this year, particularly for the South. Just more FYI.
Anybody else? Thank you. The next issue under new business is substitute coverage for the 2018-19 school year.
So my understanding is that we need you to identify the kind of reporting that you want on that, and we will bring it back to the next board meeting. I can tell you, in general, like on today, for example, we had 121 subs that said that they were available to work, and only 28 worked. We do have about 300 or so subs that are not working. And in looking at that, we have 326 on a do not call. So we have a problem where subs don't resign or don't tell us that they're not subbing for us anymore. So the HR department does have to go through a process and wean all of those out. But what are the types of reporting that you would like us to bring to you next time?
Dr. Moseley.
So this request was made by a board member who isn't here tonight, and so that's why we don't know where this request was coming from. It's very nebulous and ambiguous, and so that's why we're not clear as to what data you're looking for. This has been an ongoing concern throughout the district. There's not enough substitute teachers. That's a result of a variety of variables ranging from the economy, ranging from our rate of pay. We're also in competition with other districts in terms of substitute teachers, and our talented subs who really do a great job. Our principals typically snatch them up and ask them to be paraprofessionals. If they're certified substitute teachers, it probably takes a principal maybe all but 2 shakes of a lamb's tail to grab those substitute teachers and put them into short-term substitute positions when we have maternity leave, paternity leave, extended FMLA. Or any type of situation where a teacher's going to be out for an extended amount of time. So we get great subs, but we certainly use them for other areas of need throughout the district. So we're well aware of it. We have tried to do the sub fairs. We're going to do a sub fair again to see if we can get interest. When our college kids come home, We encourage them, we still are encouraging them, so if you're college kids, you're home for a break or anything like that, please come in and fill it out, an application. We'll be more than happy to have you back. And so this has just been an ongoing issue for us for quite some time. So substitute teachers, special education paraprofessionals, we're always hiring, and so if you know of anyone out there or anything, or you're interested, please keep the National Public Schools in your view, and please come and talk to us.
Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. I seem to recall during our budget process last spring that we were looking at about 33% of positions were going unfilled on a kind of ongoing basis. And so as part of the budget that the board approved, we had an incentive program, where you substitute so many times and then you get a little bit of a bump. So I believe that part of the information that was being requested was, what is that looking like now? Are we still having that same rate of unfilled, positions? And two, has the substitute loyalty program had any effect at all? So, and I'm curious about both those things as well.
Well, I think it has a 45-day.
It takes a while, I think. I don't recall.
It's not 45, it's either 20 or 30.
20, yeah.
30-day.
Yeah, so they wouldn't get to it. It's kind of early in the year to get there yet. But that program, we are putting it in place. I don't think anyone's reached the level yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if just to interrupt here, if last year, about a year and a half ago, we went through some numbers at the Finance and Ops Committee. I mean, could work with Dana, and I could put it on next month's agenda. If you'd like to do it that way, then we can give us time to prepare some numbers, let you know by school, percentages and things, if you'd like.
Do you want a sub-report for finance?
Yeah, that would be good. Sure.
Okay.
Kind of to supply a student context to the substitute issue, at least in the high schools, I think more often than not, when one of my teachers is not present in school that day, I'm in the auditorium with like 3 or 4 other classes because they don't have enough subs, and you're literally just sitting there doing nothing. And I think that happens more often when I don't have a teacher in the room than it doesn't, and so I definitely do think that substitute coverage should be one of our main concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Gillis. Ms. Sweeney?
I know at least at South, most of the students are put in the lecture hall if there's no sub, and it's with an administrator sitting at the front table and the lecture hall being packed full of kids, because normally there's not that many subs in the building.
Thank you. Ms. O'Gara and then Ms. Raymond.
The substitute shortage is a shortage across all the school districts. It's not just us or just New Hampshire. All across the United States we're experiencing it, and the biggest factor that I've heard is the unemployment rate. So everybody's being employed, and that's why we're mostly short subs.
Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. To Mr. Gillis and Ms. Sweeney, have you noticed any change over last year in the amount of classes that you're finding are lacking as a sub?
Sure.
Last year was probably the worst that I've seen. This year I've only had 2 classes where I've needed a sub so far, and I had a sub each time. And last year I think I was only put into the lecture hall twice, but there have been some classes where they were put in more often.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say last year was probably the worst. This year, I've only had to be in the auditorium once, but it's just in the start of the school year, so.
Right, it's like 6 weeks in or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could, they're definitely right. We have more teachers out later in the year than the beginning of the year. So that's part of the issue, is there's fewer teachers out. Later on in the year, there's more teachers out. I'm not sure why, it just happens that way.
And I would like to say, reading the minutes from the focus groups for the strategic planning, teachers have identified substitutes as one of our challenges. So we're getting that feedback that, and it is at all levels. I'm not just seeing it at the high school, it's at all levels. So It is a problem. Might be good to look at that and see what we can do. Okay. Public comments, 15 minutes.
I have some
Oh,
comments.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mosier, I apologize. So
That's
sorry.
all right. I understand. Just giving everybody a chance to speak before I open my big mouth. I'm looking at the situation with teachers and substitutes and other people that are involved in education. That it seems that when the economy is good and there are a lot of open positions that are available to people with education or involved in education, they became much more scarce to the districts in general because the pay rate for these people that are well educated and dedicated, they find that they can not only make a bit more money, but also the benefits are generally a lot better too. So when you have a really robust economy, you find that you're going to have difficulty in getting substitutes and even people for the paras and teachers as well, because when you have a vacancy, of course they're going to be looking at say, well, okay, I know I can go into the district or that district, and I can get a job, and but I still have to put in 5 years or so to get tenure. But if I go with the XYZ company, I can start off and probably make $100 a week more than I would be making at the school. And after a year or 2 years, I wind up with the same amount of vacation time and better benefits than what I would get at the school. So that's one of the things that you have to look at, and I think Dana knows that, is that the robust economy makes it more difficult to hire subs and teachers and other people in the education field, because you have people that are really well educated with master's degrees and doctorates, etc. That why should I work at this and have all these rules, regulations, and the federal this and federal that, and state problems when I can go to work for this other company and be a lot better off. So that's why I think that one of the things you have to look at is the robust economy does not help the school district.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. And again, I apologize.
That's okay.
Thank you. Board member comments.
Public.
Public comments, I'm sorry.
Adam Marcoux, 4 Jalori Lane, President of the Nashua Teachers Union. I just wanted to add my comments about the substitute crisis, is what I'll call it. This isn't new. We've been talking, I think, forever, Dana and Dr. Moseley, about this, but it extends beyond teachers. When a teacher's out and we don't have enough substitutes, we have a paraeducator help. And we have some very talented paraeducators that do a fantastic job filling in that position. But when they're out of their position, there's no one filling in for them. So when you pull a paraeducator, in some cases, you're affecting 5 classrooms. Yes, we need to cover that classroom, but there's a ripple effect. There's someone not getting what they need on that day. There are no, I'm going to generalize that there are no paraeducator substitutes. Dana's going to tell me that I'm wrong, and that's okay, because there's probably like 5. Because that's a challenging job as well, to do that. And there's a third section of the staff that we often don't mention, is food service. Significantly understaffed, not because we lack the positions, We lack the people in those positions. We don't have a deep pool of people who want to come in on a per diem basis to work food service for 3, 4, 5, or 6 hours a day. We have some schools that are short because there's just no one to fill those positions right now. And I wish that we had a magic crystal ball with an answer. But honestly, since I came on board as NTU president, I think the overall situation with substitutes has deteriorated significantly. And it's not because there is a lack of effort to get substitutes. There is a lack of people that want to be substitutes. And we talk about, I've talked with a principal, he said he went to bed, he had 7 teachers out and 7 teachers covered. He got up and checked ASOP the next morning, he had 7 teachers out and 4 substitutes. Because 3 dropped Nashua and went somewhere and made more money. Now, you can talk about having a you drop 3 times you're out policy, but then then what if they could come every 5 days, every 5th day they came? It's a rock and a hard place. So I don't know what the solution is. Obviously, money would help, but I also understand that money doesn't grow on trees in this district, and the union is willing to think outside the box again, draw a picture. I don't know what the answer is to this, but we will continue to work collaboratively with the district to try to find a solution. I'm a little concerned that it's tied to the economy, because when the economy's good, that's good for everyone, except for substitutes. So I don't know what the answer is, but I did need to make sure that we focus on our teachers, which is crucial, but also the people behind the teachers that work side by side with them, either with them in a classroom or making sure the kids eat. So, thank you.
Mr. Marco, I appreciate the observations, but there's a saying that was popular a few years back that says that the rising tide floats all boats, and that goes for our substitutes and our teachers as well.
I don't know what to say to that. Thank you, Mr. Mosier.
Thank you. And also, to add to that, we have our monitors, our lunchroom monitors, and our crossing guards, because I know sometimes we get somebody who's not a regular crossing guard up at Pennachuck Middle School. And that's been a problem for a few years, and, that's safety. So we are having issues, and we'll work to that. If anybody has any ideas that's listening, or anybody in the district, please send them in. Look to see if we could get creative. Okay. Anybody else in the public want to speak? Okay. Board member comments. Miss.
The Arlington Street Community Center in front of Dr. Chris is having their annual 2nd Halloween party on October the 27th, 2018, from 2 to 6, We welcome all children throughout the district to attend. We had a great time last year. I think this is going to be bigger and better than last year. And we also do costumes. We give out costumes, and we have all type of prizes and stuff. It's going to be a really good event. So hopefully the kids with the parents out there that's listening to this, come over to the Arlington Street Community Center, have some fun.
Thank you. Ms. Porter. Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone that at our last meeting, we voted to invite Mr. Valinsky and Mr. Tobin to come and present their School Funding 101 forum here in Nashua. They've done it all over the state so far. We might be one of the last few districts to get it. So they have agreed. So the School Funding 101 forum will be on Thursday, October 18th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. I had reserved this room. It looks like we're going to have, hopefully, more people than will fit in this room. So I have now reserved the cafeteria. So if we need overflow, we'll just move the whole thing into the cafeteria. So that's all.
Excuse me, the time?
6 p.m. on Thursday, October 18th.
Okay.
Ms. Van Twyver? No? Mr. Guarino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just be brief. I have been online on our website reviewing the input from the focus groups on the strategic plan. So there's a lot of information online when the focus groups meet and they gather all the information. It's all there. There's a lot of information there, and I think it's going really well. So I'm looking forward to putting my 2 cents in on the strategic plan on October 22nd. The focus group is for Nashua High South parents, and so I'll be there. So thank you for all your hard work, Ms. Porter.
Okay. I want to thank Ms. Raymond for being the point person on the funding forum. You've done a nice job. Thank you. I appreciate that more than you know.
You know, I don't know, but I will find out. Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea. Yeah, I'll follow up on that and let you know.
And also, I want to thank Ms. Riley, the new director of the Brentwood program. A few of us had an opportunity to go over there. It's in Nashua now. And from the response we got from the staff and from the students, it has made a great deal of difference. They're seeing a lot more of the district people. They're feeling part of the Nashua community more. So the people are excited there. It's a nice facility that they have there. So that was a step in the right direction for our district and for many of our kids in the district. So I want to thank them and thank Dr. Moseley and Mr. Donovan for arranging. I know there was a lot of work in the contract for the space that we had, but yeah, I think you made a good choice, and it seems to be serving us well. So thank you. Okay.
Can I be next?
Oh, yes, Mr. Mosher.
Yes. Hey, I am very glad to see how well the CTE program is advancing. And that's been one of the things that I have always been harping on was the CTE and, as you know, reading, math, and science. But, you know, the CTE is important because, you know, when you get out into the real world and you have that little bit of background that you have gained in high school, you know, to see how the world works and how things work, it's a big help. Back when I was in high school, we did not have any CTE program. We had a little shop program where everybody in the shop made a three-legged stool. So, I mean, that was the extent of our CTE program. The idea that the CTE is important is not everybody is going to go to college. Not everybody is going to go to attend either a 2-year or a 4-year school. And they'll be looking at something else. But some, you know, people that take the CTE course, they can come out and they start off making some very good money, either in construction, as an electrical apprentice, or in some other field like plumbing and heating. And there's always good money to be made when you are working with your hands or a contractor and doing work that you can be proud of. So CTE is very important.
Thank you. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. On the motion to adjourn, Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Mrs. Oden?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino votes yes. Ms. Porter?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
It is 8:31 and we are now adjourned.